I want to welcome you to Introducing Christian Missions here at University of the Cumberlands. My name is Anthony Jolly, and I am excited to be your instructor over the next 8 weeks as we take a look at Christian missions here. Wanted to use this first video kind of to do two things. One, to introduce myself a little bit to you, and also to introduce the class to you. So let me just begin with a personal introduction, and I'm going to kind of use the questions as prompts that are given to you in your student introduction discussion board for week one. As I've already said, my name is Anthony Jolly. Let me tell you a little bit about where I'm from. I grew up here in Kentucky in the central part of the state, a little spot on the map called Buffalo. Most people don't know where that is. Many people may know Hodgenville, which is in LaRue County, but the best way if you wanted to look at a map, if you found Campbellsville and you found Elizabethtown, Hodgenville, LaRue County, Buffalo area is right in the middle of those two places on the map, just kind of in the middle of the state of Kentucky. So that's where I grew up. Currently, I live in Monticello, Kentucky, a pastor church here, Elk Spring Valley Baptist Church. And Monticello, if you don't know, I'm actually, as the bird flies, not very far from Williamsburg. We're separated by a couple of mountains. So I am to the west of Williamsburg if you're there on the main campus. You can actually come around the bottom of the mountain, and when I travel to campus, I can be there in just about an hour if I take the back way around the mountain. So it's kind of who I am and where I came from. I'm also a two-time graduate of Cumberlands. Those of you who are on campus, I know those buildings, know the landscape there, even though it's changed a lot since I was there. I graduated the first time from Cumberland in 2009 with my bachelor's. My concentrations were in communications and what was known at that time as the religion department. It's now known as the missions and ministry department there. So that was my first degree. Greater than my degree, though, that I took away. That's also where I met my wife, Laura. She's a 2011 graduate from Cumberland, and we got married just a couple weeks after she graduated in 2011. Went back to Cumberland online, did their Master of Arts in Christian Studies, graduated with that degree in 2014. I have also continued my education since then. We've taken some classes through the Southern Baptist Theological Seminary in Louisville. And kind of my goal right now is I'm in the process of just praying and talking with my wife and others if it's a smart move, looking at beginning some doctoral work there at the seminary in Louisville. So that's a little bit about me, a little bit about my time at Cumberland. Something fun from your summer. Well, my summer has been interesting because at the beginning of the summer, at the end of May, me and my wife welcomed our first child, a baby boy. His name is Judson, and some of you are like, that's kind of a unique name. I've never heard about it. He's actually named after a hero of mine who is Adoniram Judson. Adoniram Judson was a missionary, left New England, went to a place called Burma, which is modern day Myanmar. And there he took the gospel to them. I had a professor one time that said, choose heroes who are dead because they can't disappoint you. Anything that they've done, good, bad, or indifferent, has already been done. You know that about them, and so they can't do anything to disappoint you now. And so, but nonetheless, kind of took that advice. But Adoniram Judson has always been a hero of mine, a missionary, which you will have the opportunity to learn about. You'll hear about him throughout this class. But nonetheless, couldn't really sell my wife on the name Adoniram, but she was okay with Judson. And so that is the name of my firstborn son, who we welcomed at the end of May, kind of going into summer. And so that's kind of the most exciting thing about my summer was the birth of my son. And then also I asked the question about what's the most interesting place you've been on a mission trip? And maybe if you've not been on a mission trip, where's a place you'd like to go? I've been blessed by the Lord to be able to serve on countless mission opportunities here within the state of Kentucky, across North America, and even overseas. But the one that sticks out to me the most, just good memories of it, was I led a group from a church in Cadiz, actually multiple churches in Cadiz where I was serving at the time. to Alaska. We went during the middle of the summer, during what they call the salmon frenzy. And so there's a time of year when the salmon come in from the ocean, swim back upstream into the rivers, and the native people who live there are allowed to catch a large quantity of those. Now, there's commercial fishermen that are fishing, but there's some time set aside where the native people there or citizens there are able to catch so many. And they do it through a process called dip netting, which is, you can imagine a long handle with a hoop, like the size of a hula hoop on the end with a large net. They wade out into the rivers and they drop those down so that the salmon will swim into those nets. And when they do, they turn them sideways. It closes the nets. They pull them out. Literally, they pull them on to the beach. Oftentimes, they will have their children take a stick or like the end of a pool cue. Or if you've ever visited the Louisville Slugger Museum, you know that they give out the miniature, about foot long baseball bats. Their children will take those, basically beat them in the head until they're dead, drag them back up to the shore while mom or dad go back out and catch these fish, because they're given an opportunity to catch several fish. I think it's somewhere, don't hold me to these numbers, but somewhere in the neighborhood of maybe 15 or 20 fish for the head of the household. And then they can catch 10 additional ones for every other person who lives in their household. So for a mom and dad with two kids, they may be given the opportunity to catch 40 or 50 salmon during this 2 to 3 week period when this is going on. And that would be enough to feed them for a good portion of the year. But nonetheless, we went to Alaska during that time specifically to serve these people. And so our team split up with many other teams that had come in. We served on 3 of the beaches there where this went on, and at a boat ramp where, like I said, some commercial fishermen were going out. We fixed hot dogs, Kool-Aid, and what I call Bible school cookies. So like little white cookies with white filling, similar to an Oreo, but off-brand. We would give those to them. We held a couple of worship services, did some activities with their kids, and just shared the gospel with them while we were there. Now, again, that wasn't across the ocean. It was in Alaska, but just a very enjoyable time as I did that. So that's kind of one of my favorite places I've been on a mission trip. Looking forward to hearing from you, you all, as you responded to those same questions in your discussion board. So enough talk about me. Let me talk briefly about the class and what you can expect each week as we go through this. Let me first always like to tell the class this going forward. This is an online setting. And so where if we were in a classroom, I would be able to change my teaching plan on the fly based on questions or conversations we were having. Would also have multiple times a week to be with you in person to discuss things and have conversations and to build off of that. Unfortunately, the online version of this class doesn't afford us some of those in-person, what I call conveniences that we would have if we were sitting in class. And so I'm taking the information that I would share in an in-person class and doing it on an online format. And so because of that, you're going to have weeks that you feel like are loaded with lots of information. You're also going to have weeks where you're reading something and you're like, hey, this reading goes with this, but this reading over here, I don't understand why we're reading it here, or maybe we've discussed that in the past, or it could be that it's something going up and I've got lots of stuff on that topic. And so I'm preparing you for it. So just stick with me. You will have reading, I promise you, every week that correlates with what's going on, but you may have some reading during the week that as you're reading, you're like, this doesn't match this week. There's a reason for that. It's either something that I needed to cover or it's something that's coming up. So let me take that also to say this. We're going to kind of deal with the nuts and bolts, I would say, like putting just the pieces, maybe that's a better way. So if you were to take a model or a puzzle, we're just putting all those pieces on the table and kind of flipping them right side up so you can see them. And we're going to have all kinds of stuff. There's a class that will follow this. And so if you haven't registered for the second half of the term yet, or if you've got an availability, there's actually a second part to this class, which is called Developing Mission Strategies. And in that class, I will take 8 weeks and we will do nothing but really take the foundation of what we learned here and kind of put it together in a practical way. Now you're going to get some practical stuff in this 8 weeks, don't get me wrong. But if you're really wanting that practical piece of it, component, I would encourage you, if you haven't already, I saw that a couple of you, your names are on both. I'm very excited about that. But sign up for that class. That's where we'll really learn the practical, how to take the pieces, the nuts and bolts, and put them together and really make something out of it. So that's kind of my advertisement for signing up for that next class later on in the semester. Um, Here's what you can expect each week in content. One, you're going to have some reading, and your reading will come from a couple of different places. You have 2 textbooks that you can find in the syllabus that you need to order from for this class. One of them is called Missions, How the Local Church Goes Global by Andy Johnson. And then the second one is more of like a manual called Tradecraft for the Church on Missions, and has a couple of authors here that wrote on it. We may not read through both of those books in their entirety, but we'll take pieces from each of them. And so it's important that you watch under the weekly reading, because I don't want you reading stuff that you don't have to, but I want to make sure that you're getting the content that you need. You're also going to have some articles, short 2, 3, 4, maybe 5-page articles that I have printed and put in PDF form for you to read, where maybe it just hits on some of these topics and gives us another point of view. So that's part of what your content will look like. You'll also have video content every week. Most weeks, not all weeks, but most weeks it'll look something like this. There'll be a video for me, which will kind of be an overview of the week and some kind of lecture material that I want to hit, fill in the gap between the reading or building off the reading. You may have another practitioner. So it may be another professor, it may be a pastor, someone that's actively involved in missions. It could be an interview, it could be just a forum where they're talking, it could be a sermon also that I'll have you watch. And that's basically, so the reading and the video content will look like that. And then how I'm going to test you on seeing if you really read or listened to the content is through 4 different avenues. And these are pretty standard to your online classes here at Cumberland. Every week you'll have a discussion board. And the discussion board is going to ask you to respond to a question or a quote. Could be anything. Could be a question that was raised during the week's reading. It could be a quote from your reading, or it may be, I like to oftentimes just pick maybe a famous quote from a historical missionary and just let you respond to it. Like, how did this make you feel? What does this make you think about? How does this, challenge you, whatever that may be. But you'll get that quote. And then this is important. I want you all to hear me, because I'm going to discuss how late work, or how something ends up being late, and how I grade that. So discussion boards, this is very important that you understand this. You are to respond to the initial post in 100-word minimum by Friday every week by the end of the day. So at 11:59 on Friday, you should respond 100-word minimum. If you're typing, that's like half a page double space. So, 2 good paragraphs at the most. Respond 100 words to that prompt. Then by Sunday, so 2 days later, after you've responded to that initial post, you need to respond to 2 of your fellow students. Remember, this needs to be at a collegiate level. I don't want like, hey, I enjoyed what you wrote. I agree with you. Like, this is supposed to be like, or replace what would be in-class conversation. So read what they said and think about it and offer something back. Like, hey, I hadn't thought about, and when you said this, it made me think about this. Now you can tell them you agreed with them, and maybe you add something that they didn't say, but it needs to be on a collegiate level. You'll be graded that. The rubric for that, you'll clearly see that. And so if you're losing points because of like being maybe on a proficient level instead of excellent, I'll make a note and say like, I need more from you. Those are worth 15 points every week. Now remember this, that post, that assignment is late if you do not respond to the initial post by Friday. If you wait Saturday morning, that's late. It's due by the end of the day. Now, I accept late work all the way up to the last day of class, but this is what I do. I just automatically take 10, 10% of that off for being late. I don't think it's right or fair that a student that did things timely should be shouldn't receive something for doing that. Like I said, I will receive that all the way to the last day of class, but it will be with a 10% deduction. So basically, it's 15 points. If it's turned in late, I'm automatically taking 1.5 points off. So the best you would be able to get would be like a 13.5 out of 15 if you did well on everything else. Again, remember, it's late if it's not turned in by the end of the day, Friday. Initial post. Respond to 2 classmates by the end of the day, Sunday. All right, so that's discussion board. Another thing you're going to have is quizzes. These, I call them content quizzes. It's normally 10 questions. They're multiple choice. It may be fill in the blank, maybe matching. Vast majority of the time, they are multiple choice. They are not meant to stump you. I've not dug up the hardest stuff in the content to test you on. These are things that should have stuck out to you during the lectures and during the reading that you should be able to do well with this. Oftentimes, there'll be a bonus question where you can earn maybe a point, half a point, 2 points, something like that. These are open book, open note. So if it's a question from the reading, you're more than welcome to go back and check it out, see if you can find the answer. Now, keep in mind, some weeks you have a lot of reading. Let me say that while I'm here for just a moment. You could have 40 or 50 pages of reading a week. Now, keep in mind, if you're not seeing your books when I've done this, don't get terrified on me. These books are small books. There's not a lot of words on every page. So this isn't 40 or 50 pages out of a commentary. This is 40 or 50 pages out of a easy read book. So it shouldn't take you like a long time to do that reading, but at the same time, the quizzes only allow you 30 minutes to do them. So you're not going to be able to like flip through everything and find those answers. I want you to do well. So keep that in mind. You need to do the reading. You need to watch the video content before you attempt the quizzes. 10 questions, 2 points each, it's worth 20 points every week. Then you're going to have a reflection assignment. You'll have one of these every week. It's worth 25 points. They're going to be 1 page double spaced. So reflection is always 1 page double spaced. That's a minimum of 250 words. I don't think that's too much to ask because that's like 2, 3, maybe 4 good paragraphs on a college level. But it's going to ask you to reflect on something from the week. Like I said, if there was a theme, if there was a question or something like that, it's just going to ask you to kind of reflect on that and answer a question on a personal level. And then each week you'll have an accomplished assignment. The accomplished assignments are worth 40 points. These are 2 pages double spaced, so a minimum of 500 words. Let me say this about word counts real quickly. Hitting that minimum is important. Now, I'm not going to be legalistic. If you've got 485 words, but you got 2 full pages, like I'm probably not going to dock you for points. But at the same time, if you write a page and a half and you've only got 375 words, like you're going to lose points for that. But here's the other side of that spectrum. I'm teaching you all. I pastor a church. I'm a husband and I'm a dad. And I have hobbies. So I got a lot going on in my week. I don't have time to read a novel. So if I've asked you to write something in a page, then write it in a page. Now, again, I'm not going to be legalistic. If you're a page and 2 or 3 lines to finish up a paragraph, that's okay. But if I've asked you for a page and you write me 2.5, I don't have time for that. If I write you to write 2 pages about something and you write 5, I don't have time for that, okay? So here's what happens. You ever heard of being hangry? Like when you start getting angry because you're hungry? Well, I don't want to have any kind of anger or rage or irritation to me when I'm grading your papers. So we're on a college level. Part of being a college student is twofold. Being able to research and write things at length to really show that you've understood content, but also learning how to be concise and use your words well. So if you want me to grade your papers more difficult than I normally would, then turn in something rather lengthy. And if you want to lose points, then turn in something rather lengthy. I will knock points off. If you consistently continue to turn in papers that are exceptionally longer than I've asked for, I'm going to knock points off for that. Because one, that's not being a good steward of my time, and it's not being a good steward of your time to do all that extra work. And also, if you don't meet the mark, again, I'm not being legalistic. If you're 4, 5, 10 words off, I understand, as long as you've answered the questions for me. But if you turn in something that's like less than what I've asked for, significantly less, you'll lose points for that as well. Back to the accomplished assignments. 2 pages, double space, 500-word minimum. There's basically 2 types of assignments that you're going to see here. You're going to be asked to do 4 missionary biographies during across the 8 weeks. They're going to be due in weeks 1, 3, 5, and 7, your odd weeks. So you got one of those coming up this first week. I've given you a list of 4 female and 4 male missionaries. Throughout the semester, you have to choose 4 of those, and I'm asking you to do 2 male and 2 female. I want you to see all sides, kind of give you just a broad, this is not in depth, but a broad understanding of all of that. There is a Word document in the first week 1 assignment that tells you exactly what that biography needs to look like, what I'm looking for you to get a good grade. So take a look at that. Also, you're going to have a few accomplished assignments that have to do with what I call a HEAR journal, which I'm going to do a separate video on what that looks like so you understand it. But you're going to have a passage of scripture that I would consider to be a missional passage. And I'm going to ask you to do a journal entry on it. This journal entry is going to look very specific. It's very easy, but it's going to require you to think and to really ask the Lord to show you some stuff. And as long as you do that, you will make a good grade. This is not a right or wrong thing. Now, if you type something in it that I'm like, that's not really what that means, I'm going to give you some correction on it, but I'm not going to deduct points. This is an assignment. These scripture HEAR journal entries, everybody should get a 40 out of 40 on, as long as you do them the way that I'm asking you to. And those are going to deal with missional scriptures. And so with that being said, just watch the video before you do it, turn it in the way that I'm asking you to, and you'll do well. And then there's a possibility, I'm undecided at the recording of this video, that in week 8, your accomplished assignment may be more reflective across the 8 weeks. So that's kind of the breakdown. If you do all those assignments, you get 100 points. There's a possibility for 100 points every week, 800 points total. Your syllabus shows you how that breaks down, so you know what you need in order to get an A in this class. Everybody should get an A. Right now, everybody has an A in this class. So as long as you do the work and do your best, it is not hard for you to get an A in my class. One note about week 8 very quickly, and if you've taken an online class, you know this. All assignments other than the discussion board, remember that from the beginning, all assignments, so quizzes, accomplished reflection assignments, those are all due at the end of the day, Sunday every week. So again, you turn them in Monday, that's late. I will receive them late with a 10-point deduction before I start grading, except for week 8. Week 8, everything is due by the end of the day, Friday. I will remind you that closer to the end of the class, but everything is due by the end of the day, Friday on week 8. And that is because when class finishes at midnight on Friday, they give me until midnight the following day, Saturday, to have your final grades turned in. So make sure that you get those done. That's what you can expect from this class. I'm very excited to be with you. Real quickly, let me tell you the best way to get a hold of me. You can send me a message in iLearn. The problem with those is I don't always get a notification that you've sent those. And so I try to watch. The best way to get a hold of me is through my Cumberlands email. I try to check it sometime mid-morning, sometime before the end of the day each day. So if you've emailed me during the day, I should catch it at night. If you email me after I check it at night, I should catch it the next morning. But in doing that, that allows me to try to respond to you um, within 24 hours. And I do my best to do that. So sometimes there are circumstances that may prevent me from doing that. Like I said, I'm also a pastor. Things come up where I have to be out of the office for extended period of time. And so if that's the case, and it's something that's time sensitive, I will give grace on my end if it is on me because I have not responded quick enough. But that is the absolute best way to get a hold of me is through email. You can find that in your syllabus. Take a look at your syllabus. Make sure that you understand everything. My point about the syllabus is simply this. It's a guide for us. We kind of use it for a map to this class. Make sure you read it and you understand it. But most importantly, if there's ever a discrepancy between what the syllabus says and what iLearn says, iLearn is always the most up to date. If you ever have a question about a due date or an assignment, feel free to reach out to me. I'll be glad to answer those questions for you. Again, looking forward to being with you. Um, Watch this video, or I hope you've watched this video. It'll help you do well in this class. And after this video, there will probably be a week 1 lecture video that you will need to watch also. So again, my name is Anthony Jolly. I am your instructor for introducing Christian missions here at the Cumberlands, and it's a joy and a pleasure to be able to do this.